This is a training on reports, which I know a lot of you have been waiting for, reports with SIMC. So thank you for bearing with us while we've had a vacancy in the Service Insights department here and been trying our best to cover. But I think this is really important. I'm excited that we can go through it today. What I was planning to do was cover a few things that are not really reports, but might get at information that you're looking for, including the date that someone was last served at your pantry, how you can see that, how you can see your list of people served for that day, and then some of the actual reports, more reporty things, including data exports. You do have a way, just like in Fresh Track, to see the last served date for your client. So if I'm logged in already on the test site, and if I go and look up and I'm looking for a banana test person, and I swear it always takes a really long time to load in the training site when I'm sharing my screen. I don't think it takes too long to load in the real site. Sometimes it could, but okay. So we'll say, well, so what you'll see is just by looking up their name before you even click on them and start serving them, there's this last visit column that pops up. And so it's going to be ordered. Anyone that meets those search criteria is ordered from most recently served at your pantry to least recently or not having been served at all. So that's why this Ben test who was served yesterday is appearing above this other Ben test who was served on June 7th, and they're appearing above Banana Test, even though Banana Test is alphabetically first, because Banana Test hasn't been served since May 22nd. And then if you keep scrolling, we get into the section of there's a baby test, a bat test, bill test, and all of those have an NA next to their last visit date because they haven't been served at your pantry, which means either you all entered them when you were just entering data from Fresh Track and didn't actually serve them yet, or they were added by another pantry. So that's the last visit date. You can also see information if you need more than that. So if I click the plus next to their name, it's going to bring up a bunch of information, including household members. But if you go to recent visit history at the bottom, you can also see their most recent visits. I think maybe it gives you 5 visits if they've been within like the last 3 months. And then after that, I think it wouldn't show you things before 3 months, or it wouldn't show you, 6 visits. But you can also always see that if you go to the view history, it would bring you into their full visit record just for your pantry. You can't see any other pantries, but that's where you can see the dates and the services as well that they were served under. So that's your basic information about a client themselves if you're looking to see when they were last served. So where it says view, that actually just brings you into their TFAP attestation. It's just showing they didn't actually need to sign the attestation this time. So actually you could go in and update. I guess I actually didn't realize this until you just made me look at it, is that's where if you were doing diapers or any other additional service, you could add it in after the fact, I think. But yes, that's the view. That's what it looks like there. Something that's similar viewpoint. And I should also just say, in any of these, there is the little home button top left. So if you're ever trying to get out of something, go to the home button. But I'm going to switch to a day because on this day, I haven't served anyone yet under the coordinator or under this account in the training site. If I go back to yesterday when I did serve some people, if you scroll down to where it has the event distribution events today, and it will say the number of individuals served. So it's telling me I served 50 individuals up here, 18 households. So don't be alarmed when that number looks high. I feel like I usually think of things in terms of households. And so you're like, what? This is a big number. But when you click the 50 served, that brings you into your list of people served for that day. And I've seen, it looks like it's ordering a little bit weirdly. It's supposed to order from most recently served to longest ago served, the same way that the search does. But for some reason, this Ben test and Banana test are appearing above these people that were served later. So I don't know what's going on there, but you can click and sort this list by anyone. You can search by name. If you double click it, it will switch to being reverse order. You can search by number, or you can order by number of household members, phone number, what services they got, if you canceled their visit or not. And you can also switch and search for least recent. You can switch that order as well. So this can be really helpful, especially if you get to the end of the day and you're trying to see if you entered someone twice by accident. You can go and cancel them. Like in this example, we have a pansy flower and they were served 4 times here. I think because we just had people practicing, which is good. But if I realized that, I could go and click cancel for the one that was a duplicate, and it will say yes. And now in my list, that one is showing up as canceled. Can you sort by last name or just first name? Yes, I think it's just first name here. That's actually a good point. It does let you can search. Yeah, so you can't sort by last name, but you can search if you know you're looking for someone that way. But yeah, it's not going to let you go in order of last name because it combines the name into one thing. That's a good point, and maybe something we could ask them for. You can also export this to Excel. It's not going to give you any other additional information. It just gives you this exact page in Excel. So I still don't think that would help us sort by last name. It's supposed to update this. It still says total served is 50. I'm going to refresh the page because I think, yeah, so now it says 47. So I guess this number isn't necessarily refreshing, but it's still saved at all. It canceled the visit. It's just you're not seeing it reflected in that total right here on this page until you refresh or like go out to a different page and come back in. Okay, so that's the basic stuff I wanted to show you before you even go into the reporting. I guess the other thing I should call out is there is a calendar at the bottom, and that will show you the number of events. In most cases, you have one event set up, which is pantry. But you can also see the number of households served on that day, across that week on each day. So that might be helpful if you just want to look at a quick glance. Or if you want to see what days you want to go in and look more specifically. So here, if I see that we didn't serve anyone besides on 6/16 that week, then I can go right up here and then change it to 6/16 and then look at the distribution list. So that can also be helpful. If you need to see a list of client names, like the specific client information for a time period, like a month, anything beyond a year, you're going to go to the data export probably. But if you just need totals of like how many unique people were served, how many total visits there were, you can use the other reports. So we'll get into that now. The thing I do want to just call out before we get into those is that anything, the stuff I showed you previously does update pretty much in real time. The things I'm going to show you now do not update until the next day. So the reporting, if you run a report today, if you say I just entered a bunch of clients in today, and then I'm running a report, it's not going to include their information until tomorrow. Even if I was entering them like yesterday, like I entered them today, they were served yesterday, I just was entering a day late, it's still not going to count that until the next day. So you just want to wait if you're doing anything that's like time sensitive, basically, where you're trying to pull data that includes today. That's just something to be aware of. And it's not really going to tell you that anywhere, which I think is annoying. I think it should have a banner that tells you like, be aware, this isn't including stuff you just entered today, but that's just something you need to keep in mind. So the easiest report to pull, and this is all going to be over, you go to the hamburger, the 3 lines on the left. And then when you open that, you get a menu, which includes reports at the bottom. And we'll go through all of these reports, but the one I like to start with is the essential statistics report. So when you click on this one, you're only going to have, you don't need to select a program location. You all only have one program location set up. And it will default to the date range of today and then the date a month previously. So that's why it's showing May 17th through June 17th. So if you're trying to get your May stats, it's not going to default to May 1st through May 31st. You'll want to change that yourself, which you can do by just clicking the calendar and then the date you want. And then I haven't actually really explored this new since thing. I usually just run it without that, but it looks like that would tell you if I selected October 1st, then it would tell you the number of unique people served since that date. I don't know how that's different than the unduplicated. The number of new unique. Oh, I guess it's you can pick a different date than the date range you have up here. So this might get fancier than what you guys want, but I do know that I think there's some agencies that I've heard that need to report every year, like they need to count the number of new clients since October. So if that doesn't sound familiar to you, don't worry about that. And we can dig into it more if that is something that you need to make sure we understand it. But what you would do is click run report, and it's usually pretty fast here. This one worked very quickly. And it gives you, again, this is not any client specific names, but this is giving you a summary. So the first thing that pops up is duplicated, which you can also click the little question mark next to any of these and it will tell you what it means. But duplicated is the number of visits, right? So if someone came 5 times and they have a family of 5, they're counting that family of 5 is being counted 5 times in these statistics. So we had 31 total duplicated households. That was 80 individuals. And then it gives me the age group breakdown on the side. So 33 children, 27 adults, 19 seniors, and that adds up to the 80 individuals. Just to highlight this, I know we did have a change maybe 2 years ago where New York State HIPNAP used to use 65 as the cutoff for seniors, but it has been changed to 60. So that's what we pull here when we're entering your statistics, and that's what, if you happen to be pulling them yourselves, that's what you would be going by as well. But it is correct in this system. It's also correct in Fresh Track. It's been fixed there as well. Then it will also tell you the number of households with children and without. So we have 26 with children, 5 without, and that adds up to the 31. And then there is this total individuals with unknown age. Some of you might have noticed that within the last month or two, I think they added a checkbox where you could say age, like age not known or something like that, only for the head of household. And that's in order to be compliant with TFAP. New York State decided that you needed to have the option to not put an age. But as I just mentioned, for HIPNAP, we do report by age categories. So if you do have folks that are with unknown age, what I've been trying to do is just use the ratio of children, adults, and seniors to then determine where to put the individuals of unknown age, so you still get credit for them. Most people I'm just seeing either no individuals with unknown age or 1. But that's just something to watch out for, that you would, so the children, adults, seniors, oh, actually, yeah. So that's why this 33, 27, 19 only added up to 79. And then we have this 1 individual with unknown age, which adds up to the 80. So just something to watch out for. If you have someone who's really not comfortable providing age, they are technically allowed to say they're not providing it, but hopefully they would at least give you whether they're senior or not. And you could just put in that they're 65 or whatever, so that they're getting put in the right age category. Then you get to and so this is what you report for monthly statistics to us, and in a lot of cases, I think, to other funders. But if you want the number of unique people, that's what they call unduplicated, which you can click the question mark to see what that means. But out of these 31 household visits, there were 16 unique households that visited. And that was made up of 42 individuals, 15 kids, 18 adults, 8 seniors, plus this 1 person with unknown age. 12 households had children, 4 did not. So those are the 2 things that I find the most useful. Let's try putting in this, I don't know, I'm trying to do it February 1st, just so we can see that it does then populate this new since February 1st, 2025. So that would populate here, otherwise it'll be empty. And I guess it does explain that a little bit more as well. But then you'll see the additional household information is the number of households reported that are on SNAP and what percentage of folks are there. And then the pieces, pounds, dollars, meals, most of you probably won't be using. We usually tell folks to just leave that blank, that section blank in where you're serving folks. But if you are giving out diapers, that's where you can put in the number of diapers that were given out, or number of cases, boxes, whatever you're calling it. And that would total here. I've also talked with, I think it was Bath, Bath Food Pantry, they have a different type of service that they are counting pieces for. So that shows up here. But anyone else, you wouldn't be looking at that. You're not, I saw there was a question about number of meals served. So this is going to say 0 because you're not entering any data in anywhere about the number of meals given out. That's really not going to be tracked anywhere because we're not putting in pounds and how much people are receiving. You can also ask me. I can try to do some, if you're trying to figure out like how many unique people were served or something like that. You can always go to the Service Insights page on our website. Try to get that up here. Second. Yeah, just so I can show everyone where that is, because that is something that you have an option to do. This is on the For Partners page, and then there's a Service Insights icon you can click. And then if you scroll down, there's a requested data report right here, and it brings you into an Asana form. Asana is a platform that we use to manage requests and things like that. And you enter your name, email, tell us what type of report you're requesting, what information. If you have a copy of a previous year's version of that report, that's great if you can send it to us. And then we do just ask that you give us at least 2 weeks notice, just so we are able to prioritize things. But yeah, you just fill this out and we'll let you know whether or not we're able to pull that for you if that's data that we have. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. I want you guys to be able to pull a lot of these things yourself in SIMC, but especially while we're in that transition period. If you need someone to pull from both, let me know. So the big thing I think this essential statistics report is a lot easier to understand than a lot of the Tableau dashboards. So I recommend using this if you can, but it's not going to work for any of you food pantries who are set up with multiple services, like service types, if you're trying to go by a specific service type. So I think Pat, if you had the the question about home deliveries and pantries. So if you're trying to look at just home delivery, you can't do that here. Some of you, I think, have like a monthly, and then there's like a daily or a partial pantry or something. You're not going to be able to sort between those two. So again, if it's something that we do pull statistics for almost all of you, and we offer it for everyone that's on SIMC or FreshTrack, that will just enter your monthly stats for you. But if you are still entering your monthly stats for some reason, and you have some services in FreshTrack or in SIMC that are not a 3-day package, you can't use this report because it's going to count everything. But if you can, this one could be easier than others. So I was in the test site. Now I'm going to go into the live site just because you don't actually have access to the Tableau reports from the training site. So this is in the live site. When you click on the left side, there's some things here you don't have access to, like admin settings, because this is in my super user account. But if you go to reports, you'll have this summary statistics at the top. So the one we were in before was essential statistics at the bottom. This is summary statistics. Very similar names, but so if you click summary statistics, it brings this page up for you, which says that there's 7 page reports that you can run in Tableau. So Tableau is a separate system, separate website that's used for data visualization, but you don't have to have a separate login for it. It will log you in from SIMC. It does say that they're planning to have it not function that way. Like they would like it to be, it just opens here and you don't need to go into Tableau, but I think it's been like this for 2 years, so I'm not sure when that would be updated. So the basic one is this snapshot overview, and it will tell you on the side what each thing is going to show you. But if you click snapshot overview, it takes a little bit to load, especially when you're first opening Tableau. And it can be a little overwhelming, so don't stress if it looks a little overwhelming the first time. You see it? What you've got on the side is these filters that you can select from. So unlike the previous report I was showing you where it defaults to today and a month before. This one does default to the previous complete month. So 5/1 to 5/31 is what it's showing, but I can update if I want to as well. You'll have, I don't think you'll have this food bank filter or the agency filter because you'll be looking at an agency. Program location name isn't going to really do anything for you because we have you all set up as an agency with one program location. So you won't be looking at that. But what event is also probably just going to say pantry in most cases for you. So what you're really looking for is this service display name. So you're going through like there's a lot of potential options here, but the service display name is going to be usually what you're looking for. And this is just if you're trying to look by specific type of service, specific deliveries, pantry, those things. If you're a easy pantry and you're just looking at like who's everyone that we served, you're not going to have to really look at these filters on the side. But when I click on service display name, there's a lot here because these are all the potential services I've set up across the 30 plus agencies that are on SIMC right now. But you can deselect any of them. So we'll say that I want pantry 3-day and delivery 3-day, and then click apply. And it's going to take a little bit because it's processing, but it should take this down from the numbers that we have before. Up here, we'll see some lower numbers. And then I guess you can search by TFAP or non-TFAP. I don't think that'll be happening for most of you. You can also filter so you're only including certain counties or zip codes based on where the neighbor lives, the client. So that's pretty cool. But there's a more specific geographic report we'll run later. But you do have the ability, if you're saying, I only want to look at Bath, the folks we serve from Bath, but I want all this information for those folks, you can filter that there as well. So that's all the filter stuff. It does just take a while. There is a way that if you click this pause auto updates at the top, if you're trying to go through and change the dates and the service display name and also the neighbor county, things like that, you can pause it so it's not updating for each of those because that can take a little bit longer. So just something to be aware of, but then you have to click, I think this pause then turns into a play and you'll have to do it again. So don't worry about that if you're fine waiting a little bit for things to process. But what you're seeing on this main page, so we've got individuals information and it's giving us the total unique or unduplicated, the total duplicated, and the total new. And then it does the same thing for households, and it also tells us the average number of visits between, this is funny, this little pop-up I think is a little confusing the way it's saying it, but I think this is telling me between May 1st and May 31st, people visited an average of 1.56 times. And it tells me that I have 27 active program locations here. I don't think you might see one there or you might not see anything. I don't remember exactly what it looks like from your side. But then you do see an age distribution for these are unique people served. So it gives you a bit more of a breakdown than just kids, adults, seniors. It gives you service details by zip codes. So you can just see a bit of a heat map of folks being served. But there's more. If you're going to look for this, I would look at the specific geographic report, which we'll get into a little bit later. You can also see, again, unique numbers unduplicated, the number of households with kids, without children, and I guess the number of adults, children, and seniors living in each of those types of households. And then it also will show you the visit by rolling 12 months. So number of visits, duplicated households and individuals. And you can decide whether you're looking by households or by individuals. A lot of these, if you hover over it, it will give you numbers if it has percentages. So then this visits by rolling 12 months, that can be quick if you're just trying to show, hey, we're serving a lot more people than we were serving, 6 months ago. That can be helpful as well. So this is all the basic stuff on that first report you can run. There's also individual demographics. Format is going to be pretty similar, where I think you have the filters on the left-hand side for all these. The filters are a little bit different sometimes, but you're always going to have a time filter, being able to filter, or time frame filter, date filter is what I should call it. This is the individual demographics. So yeah, it looks like it has all the filters we saw on the other page, but it also puts in an individual age filter. So if you were looking at, I only wanted data for people 0 to 5, you could change this to 5 here. And I clicked out of it, so now it's processing. And then it will give me these things, which are the total individuals, unduplicated, total that were new, the total visits, and then it also breaks it down into gender, age, race. So let me go back and get rid of this filter because that looks a little silly now. But the piece about gender that you're going to see is, you might have noticed that it doesn't prompt you to ask for gender or race for people that are not the head of household. It is hidden in a little additional info box, which I can show in a minute. But if you haven't been going into that, which you're not required to for our purposes, but that would explain why you're going to see a lot of people not reported. So these are basically all the people that are not heads of household are showing as not reported. And then you've got female, male, and some don't know, prefer not to answer folks. So this is just something to keep in mind. If you do want to pull it just for head of household, we'll see if that pops up somewhere later, but you can also ask me and I can try to help with that. But I think just being aware of the limitations of that data, and if that's something that you do need, making sure that you are entering that in the additional info in SIMC. So this is the age distribution, where if you want to know specific years of people, you can hover over that, and it says like 1% of individuals were 50 years old, and that was 112. And this is unique numbers. So this can be a little overwhelming also to look at, but it's there. Then you have kind of 3 graphs that are all dealing with race and ethnicity, and there's differences to each of them depending on what you're looking for. So this one, the one at the top right, combines race and ethnicity. So it's incorporating like Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish. Whereas when you look at the one on the bottom left, that is not including that. It's just including these other options. And then ethnicity just breaks down Hispanic, non-Hispanic, don't know. So just pay attention to what you're looking for here. And I can also dive into that more with specifics for folks, like as you have specific grants coming up, or if you're trying to figure out what you're actually telling people. It does, if you hover over the bar, it gives a little bit more of an explanation, I think, where it's, well, I guess the important thing is that it tells you that percentages won't add up to 100% because you can identify as multiple things. So it does say that. Oh, and okay. And this is also the difference. I feel like they could explain this a little better in their explanation, but, so this graph on the top right is the one where you could select multiple races. The race on the bottom left, these are people that only pick one, and then if they picked multiple, it gets grouped into this multiple races category, I believe. So that's also the difference if you're trying to look for single or people that have picked multiple. So again, I think they could make that a little bit clearer, but just pay attention, and I'm happy to provide more information on that. And then you can also see the total number of individuals served per day. So you can see if there's maybe your Fridays are a lot busier. You're seeing these spikes that pop up. So you can see that as well, but that's just for that time frame. So again, if I could change the start date if I wanted to see, the past 6 months, if I've been operating for that long. I think it would make it a little bit hard to read this graph probably, but you can change that as well. Okay, then we have 4 household characteristics. So that was before it was talking about individuals. Now I believe it's going to be talking more about the household itself. All the same filters on the left, except when we get to the bottom, there's actually a household age group filter. So you could filter just by households that only have children, if you wanted to. And it's going to tell you number of unique households, new households, total household visits, average visits per household, and average household size. That's all at the top there. Then it gives you this household composition by age group, which we saw on the first Tableau report I was showing you. This just gives it to you, I guess, in the chart form instead of in a bar graph. But you can also see the number of individuals per household, looking at your unique households, and number of visits per household. Again, if you hover over it, it'll give you the actual number, which I agree could be more helpful. You can also see household government program participation. I will say, I don't think this one will be super useful necessarily because we don't require people to answer that question. So this is the question that's sandwiched between, do you participate in SNAP and is your income below this amount? And if you answer yes to SNAP, you're allowed, you can skip the 2 questions after that because they've already qualified. So if your pantry has been asking this question of everyone, then this is probably pretty accurate unless you serve someone from a different pantry who hadn't answered it. If anything, it would be an under report, right? So I think you could say like, oh, at least 37% of households report, that they were on Medicaid, but it might be an undercount. SNAP should be pretty accurate because that question is required and part of the TFAP attestation. But you can see there's a lot of don't know, prefer not to answer at this point for that person, for that question. And I think that's important to keep in mind, like with these questions around SNAP and other programs, like people being worried that if they answer a certain way, that's going to mean they can't access the pantry. Right. So trying to be very clear of like, that's not what this is, but I understand that, yeah, that might be happening. And that's just something to watch out for in your data and just say, hey, this includes 30% of people that said we didn't want to answer this question. The other household characteristics is probably not going to be super useful. I don't think, so there's some optional questions that can be turned on for your agency. So some of you do have a few optional questions. I think most of you just have the basic form. If you do see any of these and decide that you want to add them in, we can. But if you're not using them, there's not going to be any data that shows up on this page. So that includes some questions like military status. So is someone a veteran? Dietary restrictions, whether or not they have a disability or are employed. I haven't looked at this one in a while. This looks a little overwhelming. This one has all the same filters as the one we were just looking at, which includes the age groups where you could search by children's own, households with kids only, households with only seniors. You can filter that way if you want. So you've got preferred languages, employment status, disability status, living situation, income. There's actually, you're not going to see anything on this one. This is a question that certain states have turned on for TFAP, but we don't have it this way. Certain states, you have to ask people what their income is, not just if it's below a certain amount. So I think this will be not helpful for anyone. Same for the federal poverty level. Because we're not doing income, you're not going to see that. Health conditions is not a question that gets asked, but military status, some of you have. There's a question about food insecurity. And then there's dietary factors. So again, a lot of you might not have anything, but if you are asking any of these questions, it would appear over here. If there are any of these, I can send out as part of the follow-up here from this meeting, I'll send out a list of what the optional questions are. Again, no pressure. If you don't think they'd be useful, we encourage you not to ask them because people, like we said, people are getting anxious about having to answer a lot of questions. But if there's a specific question where you're like, yeah, this would be really great for a grant, we can add that in for you. So if we go back to service trends, and I promise we're getting to the end of these ones, and then we just have a few more sections to get through. This, it looks like, has all the same filters, but it doesn't have the seniors only type piece. But you can look by either households or individuals and duplicated or unduplicated / unique, whichever one you want. And you can look at the number of households by the last 12 months, households by days of the week. So this is where you can see, wow, like we're serving a lot of people on Mondays. It will look at each specific week within a month or within a day. Let's see what happens when we click the day one. It will take a minute to process. Oh, actually, they've updated this since I looked at it last because they didn't have anything related to time for a while, but now they have day of the week and time. So that can be really interesting. Okay, this is, what are we looking at here? This is by day for the previous month. Okay. So anyway, and then you get into households by day of the week and time. So there's a lot you could do here. If you're looking at anything related to time, maybe check in with me first because I think it could depend. Like if you're entering people's data like a day later, the time isn't going to work. I think it's just going to put the time as like 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. for everyone. So just pay attention to that. Or if you're entering outside of the hours the pantry's open. Basically, if you're entering not when they're right there in front of you, then the time isn't going to work. But the days, you should be good. Then the geographic breakdown is the one that I think Pat is excited about, and also Phyllis. So this is where you can get the zip code and county. So zip code's probably going to be the most helpful for you all. Looks like all the same filters on the side, none of the age group category, seniors only, children only, none of that stuff. But what you'll see, and this is for our whole service area, so you'll see, it'll look different for you all. But you can have the map display by county or zip code. So I'll switch it to zip code here. And then it'll give you both the map, which is a heat map. So the darker colors are going to be the most unique clients being served there, and the lighter, the fewest. And then you also see a chart off to the side, which you can sort. Maybe if you click, it's kind of hard to see here, but this little 3 lines with an arrow looks like it sorts it in order of most people served to fewest people served. But you can also hover over that zip code, and it will tell you the number of individuals, the number of duplicated individuals, households, a lot of information here. And also if you scroll in this chart, it will give you that as well. And then you can also, I should say, you can export from any of these reports. If you click the choose a format to download, you can do PDF, PowerPoint, data, crosstab, image. I think I usually do crosstab, which honestly I don't fully understand what it is, but it downloads into Excel. And you can select a specific sheet or when they talk about sheet, there are these things that are labeled, like where it says service details by zip code. So this isn't a great one for me to show you because there's not a lot of little boxes, but any of those little boxes you could export. Let's say that, let me try doing it by, so you can select if you want just what you're looking at right now, or if you want specific sheets. So again, that's where I could say, and these are a little confusing, but maybe I want the map that has service details by all zip codes. Anyway, you could select that here, click download, and then have that. So feel free to play around with that. And you don't really need to worry about confidentiality because none of this is going to let you export specific client information from Tableau. It's all already summarized. So feel free to export, play around with that, and use that in your own reports or anything. But this is where I would like to see them also give you the option to sort by town. So we'll see if that happens. So the last report with Tableau that I want to show you is called the Agency Attributes dashboard. I don't think this one might not be that useful for you. It's more useful for me because I can actually see like which agencies are operating and things like that. But this is where this box at the bottom where you can see service details by service type. That's where you could, if you have things like baby supplies, that would be diapers. This gives you some amount of a summary, and you can also set the adult age range, I guess, if you wanted to. It looks like you can set different things. Anyway, this is probably more useful for me than for you, but you can look at it if you're curious. But I think the ones that, the snapshot overview is going to give you a basic the demographics and core household characteristics, and then the geographic breakdown and service trends. I mean, they're all useful for different things, but definitely don't feel like you need to dig into each of them if you're not, feeling like it's necessary at this moment. So this is all the stuff in the Tableau reports. Then I just need to show you the quality control report, TFAP compliance reports, and data exports. You go into reports, quality control report. I honestly haven't used this a ton yet, but it looks like there might be eventually other types of reports you can run within here. But you can run a data completeness report. I believe this is something you can access from your login. Yeah, it should be because I'm under this login that I share with you all. Okay, so you can select if you want just specific cities, counties, states, zip codes. When you're looking for quality control, you can select if you want just certain program types or service types. This might be a little confusing. We think about most of your things are set up as a choice pantry. You don't need to worry about that. That's really just something on the back end. But that's where you would be able, once you click choice pantry, you could see your different service types and things like that. Government program, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but then you can run the report and it should tell you the number of, like when the last visit was reported, the number of visits that were entered that were backdated, meaning they were entered after the fact, the number of duplicates they think might exist, the number of households without a fixed address, and the number of anonymous households. I wouldn't worry too much about this. It's just something that exists, I guess. If you're a big pantry and you feel like you have a lot of folks that are entering and you're not sure how accurate they're being, this might give you some amount of an idea. Although, if there are households with no fixed address, that's fine. You might be serving a lot of unhoused people. You might have been serving a lot of people that want to be anonymous. That's fine. So this is something that exists and they might improve upon it eventually with more information. There's also the TFAP compliance report. TFAP denial report, I wouldn't worry too much about. I don't think that actually even does anything for New York State. I think it depends on other states. But if you were to be audited by New York State, they might ask you to show them they might just ask you to show them that you do attestations and that you have completed forms. Or they might say, can you run this compliance report? In which case you would select the dates for whatever they want and run the report. And it will show each of the people, the date they were served, their zip code or address if they provided it, the number of people, phone number if they provided it, what service they got, and that they signed the form, basically. And you can export that to Excel if you need to. And that should be enough. There's also, if they ask you to show them that there is a completed visit, that's where you can go into the visit list, click that view button that shows the TFAP attestation. But I think this should be good enough. I would also say feel free to call us if you're really not sure what to do, or if you hear you're about to get audited. Again, this doesn't happen to very many agencies. It happens to a few every year. But also feel free to ask us what you need to know in order to be prepared to show them. The last thing is the data export, which is not available from all the logins that you have. Most of you, I think the logins I've given you give you access to all these reports that I showed so far. But the data export, if you don't have the highest level of access that I can give you, you would be able to export de-identified data, I believe, but not identified data. So let's see actually what the de-identified data looks like. It will default, it looks like, to a day before this, and then, or a month before, and then today's day. And you can also select if you only want people from certain cities, but if you run the report, it should download for you here, and I will open it and see what it gives me. Okay. So, and this is a lot because it's just like an Excel spreadsheet, but it gives you the household ID, which is something assigned by the system, whether they're anonymous, the city, county. It's not giving you anything identifying, so it's not going to give you their phone number. It does give you their alternate ID, which is also something the system assigns. This is going to give you the number of adults kids and seniors in the household, their preferred language, if they participate in SNAP. Oh, interesting. It does give you the date of birth, actually. Seems a little interesting. That seems identifying, but it's not, the big thing is it's not giving you names. So there's a lot here. There's a lot. Oh my God, it keeps going. There's so much. Okay. But then those of you that have a higher level of access, and if I haven't given this to you and you need it, you can ask for it, and that's fine. I've started not giving it out as a default to people because a lot of people don't know that they don't even need that. So I don't want people to have access to things they don't need, but we can definitely give it to you later. But you can get things like a household roster of all data identified. And that one, when it processes. It's similar, but it does include people's names and their address if they provided it. And then a lot of this other information that we've seen before. Hopefully most things you can get from the summary reports, but I know there might be some things that you still need to go into that for. The only thing I wanted to make sure people know is that you might see these totals and reports changing a little bit due to the duplicate management combination tool. So if the system flags that two accounts are duplicates and they get combined, there could be some fluctuation in the totals based on when you pull the report. So just something to be aware of if you see like some small differences. It shouldn't be anything crazy. But I think that's the last thing I just wanted to make sure everyone knows.